I was 27 when this happened, working as a junior graphic designer for a small marketing agency. By the time New Year's approached, I was completely burned out. I had spent the whole December finishing a cluster of holiday campaigns that all launched at once. So when my girlfriend at the time, Danielle, suggested we escape to a remote cabin in the mountains for New Year's Eve, I agreed immediately. I wasn't the outdoorsy type, but the idea of a quiet place where notifications couldn't find me sounded like medicine. Danielle found a small Airbnb listed as the Lookout Cabin, rustic winter retreat. The photos looked cozy enough. Wooden walls, a stone fireplace, big windows facing the woods. The listing mentioned limited cell service and no Wi-Fi, which weirdly felt like a selling point. We left on December 30th, planning to spend 2 nights there. The owner had sent us a long message about proper window latching, especially during winter storms, and that we might hear animals moving near the porch. I assumed it was just a polite warning for city guests who panicked at raccoons. The drive took 4 hours, then another 30 minutes up a narrower road than I expected, more like a single lane carved through snow and pine needles. When we finally reached the cabin, the sun was already fading behind the tree line. Looking back now, there was nothing obviously wrong the moment we arrived. But there's one detail I still replay in my head. The front door was unlocked, as if someone had stepped out only minutes before we arrived. The owner insisted in messages that he always left the door locked. We shrugged it off. I really shouldn't have. The first hours were actually pleasant. We unpacked our groceries, lit the fireplace, and walked around the property taking pictures. The place was small but charming. A single bedroom, a kitchenette, and a living room with a big window overlooking a slope of trees. No neighbors in sight, no passing cars. Nothing but the hum of the wind pushing through branches. Inside the cabin, everything smelled faintly of cedar and old blankets. Danielle joked that it looked exactly like a movie set for a predictable holiday romance. We opened a bottle of cheap Prosecco and tried to pretend we were people who knew how to relax. Around 7 p.m., the owner texted, "Everything all right up there? Storm coming tonight? Make sure windows are latched fully. They can blow open in wind." We checked the windows, mostly out of a sense of responsibility. They were all latched except the large one facing the woods. Its latch stuck slightly, but eventually clicked into place. I didn't think much of how cold the glass felt against my hand, or how Danielle made a face and said, "Feels like someone left it open recently." And we ate pasta, played cards, and tried to stream music from downloaded playlists. Time stretched pleasantly. By 10 p.m., snow was falling hard. Thick flakes spiraled in the cone of the porch light, and the forest beyond the window turned into black silhouettes under white layers. Before bed, I stepped outside for a minute to breathe in the cold air. As I closed the door behind me, I remember thinking how silent everything was. Not peaceful, just silent. If you've ever stood somewhere completely isolated, you know what I mean. A quiet that feels like it's pressing against your skin. It was around 1 a.m. when I first woke up. The storm had gotten worse. Snow pellets slapped the windows in irregular bursts. Danielle was asleep beside me, breathing softly. For a moment I couldn't figure out what had pulled me from sleep. Then I heard it again, a faint knocking. I sat up, listening. It wasn't the wind. The sound was too deliberate, too slow. 3 knocks, a pause, 2 more, like someone testing different patterns. It was coming from the living room. My first thought was that a tree branch had come loose and was tapping against the cabin. I slipped out of bed and crept down the short hallway. The living room was dark, except for the dying embers in the fireplace, throwing an orange glow against the walls. When I approached the big window, I saw nothing but the snowy outline of trees. But the knocking had stopped. I exhaled, rolled my eyes at myself, and checked the latch again. It was still shut, though it wiggled slightly, probably from the old wooden frame expanding from the cold. I pushed it harder until it felt snug and went back to bed. The second time I woke up, it wasn't from a sound. It was from the feeling of cold air brushing my face. Danielle stirred, pulling blankets closer, and I realized the bedroom door was cracked open. Down the hallway, the living room was glowing faintly, illuminated by moonlight reflecting off fresh snow. I walked out again and froze. The large living room window was open, just a few inches, but unmistakably open. Snowflakes drifted inside, landing on the rug. The latch was fully undone. I stood there for several seconds, pulse thudding, trying to justify it. Maybe the latch had failed. Maybe the wind was stronger than we thought. Maybe. I closed it firmly, double-latched it, and went back to bed. But I didn't sleep well after that. By morning, New Year's Eve, the storm had passed, leaving everything buried in thick powder. Danielle made coffee while I examined the window again. The rug beneath it was slightly damp, but not as bad as I expected. Maybe it hadn't been open long. Danielle frowned. "You locked it last night. I saw you." "I know," I said. "It probably just popped open. Old cabin, I guess." "Yeah." Neither of us believed it fully, and the silence that followed proved it. We tried to ignore it and make the most of the day. We hiked a short trail behind the cabin, took photos, and even built a terrible-looking snowman near the porch. But through everything, I kept glancing back at the trees, half expecting to see someone watching us. Nobody was there. Not that I could see. In the afternoon, Danielle took a nap, and I sat by the big window with a book. That's when I noticed it. Faint footprints near the tree line. Not ours. These were deeper, larger, spaced farther apart. They led from somewhere beyond the woods toward the cabin, but stopped halfway, disappearing in churned snow as if someone had paced around and then retreated. I almost woke Danielle, but I talked myself out of it, convincing myself they were old or distorted by wind. By sunset, the temperature dropped sharply. The wooden cabin creaked as the cold settled in. Danielle made dinner, and we tried to keep things light, though both of us were checking the windows more often than normal. At around 11 p.m., we opened another bottle of cheap Prosecco, half laughing at how anticlimactic the trip felt. But then the knocking started again, slow, deliberate. From the large window, Danielle's face drained of color. This time we heard it clearly. No storm, no wind excuses, nothing to rationalize away. Knock, pause, knock, knock. Danielle whispered, "Don't go near it." But I couldn't just sit frozen. I stood, moving slowly toward the window, trying to keep my breathing quiet. The cabin was dimly lit by the fireplace, and the outside was a black mirror reflecting the room back at us. When I got close enough, I saw something that shouldn't have been possible. A shadow on the other side, human-shaped, standing completely still. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the rug. Danielle grabbed my arm. "Is someone out there?" I don't know." The knocking stopped. Then a voice, muffled through the glass, but unmistakably male. "Can you open the door? It's freezing out here." My whole body went rigid. I didn't move. Neither did Danielle. The voice spoke again, slightly louder. Lost. Please, just for a minute. Danielle shook her head violently. Her eyes were wide, glossy with fear. I swallowed hard. There's a town about 20 minutes down the road, I said loudly. You can get help there. Silence. Then, in a lower, calmer tone, the voice said, I saw you last night. Danielle's grip tightened on my wrist. The shadow on the snow shifted, as if the person outside leaned closer to the window. I backed away, pulling Danielle toward the bedroom. Then the window rattled, not knocked on, rattled, as if someone was testing whether they could force it open. I broke into a run, dragging Danielle with me. We locked ourselves in the bedroom, hearts pounding. We could hear slow footsteps on the porch, moving from one side of the cabin to the other. At one point, the doorknob to the bedroom twitched. Danielle clapped a hand over her mouth to stifle a scream. We didn't sleep. We sat on the floor of the bedroom until the sky outside gradually turned grey. The footsteps faded sometime before dawn, but we were too terrified to move. With daylight finally creeping through the curtains, we grabbed our bags, sprinted to the car, and didn't look back. There were fresh footprints all around the cabin, deep ones circling the porch and others leading back toward the woods. Definitely not ours. We reported everything to the Airbnb host, who apologized repeatedly and said the cabin had been broken into once the previous winter. He claimed he would alert local police, though nobody contacted us afterward. Danielle and I broke up a few months later, not because of the incident, though I think it lingered between us in ways neither of us wanted to admit. Every New Year's Eve since then, I can't help feeling a weird tenseness in my chest, a memory of cold knocking on old glass. It's been 2 years now, and I still don't know what that man wanted, or how long he had been watching us. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if he had been inside the cabin before we arrived. The unlocked door, the unlatched window, the footprints. The part that haunts me most is something I never told Danielle. When we were driving away that morning, I checked the rear-view mirror. Someone was standing at the tree line, watching the car disappear.